All right, thank you for staying with the Monday Report Town Hall session and playing your videos in just a bit, but let me give Priscilla a chance to respond to this. Daisy says we don't need the BBI to implement what's already in the Constitution. Is that true?
No, that is not true. Because what happens is that the Constitution itself envisages its amendments. Remember, even in 2010, otherwise, I mean, if this Constitution was to be permanently there and to never be changed, the clauses on amendments wouldn't be there. But that is not a constitutional framework. We say a Constitution is a living document. And so it must live and it must continue growing and it must continue breathing. And some of the things that you see proposed by the BBI are what we call autochthonies, those difficult legal words, but essentially homegrown, that we must continuously pursue solutions to our own problems. And the crisis that Daisy is speaking about, the economic crisis, the crisis of services, we must continuously respond, and the constitutional framework must respond. And so that is what this Constitution is doing. It is responding to changing times, evolving times, a bit of the history we've had with the 10 years, and we don't want to wait for the next election and then be here again seeking another handshake and then seeking another amendment process. So this time is as good as any for the purposes of fixing the crisis that we are in, but also more importantly, stabilizing ourselves is like a plane. You know, you stabilize the plane so that we can now take off. Otherwise, if we continue grounded and just doing ground activities, we are not helping ourselves. We must put the plane in order so that the plane can then take off. And that's what this is about. But then the other thing that she raises around the amendments, there are some clauses in Article 255, which once you touch, there is no other way. The Constitution itself requires that if you touch the structure of Parliament, if you touch devolution, if you touch the judiciary and independence of the judiciary, and you remember the Ombudsman has been proposed by the BBI as an accountability mechanism. And after the Bomas conversation, where the issue of the Ombudsman really came up in a big way, actually led by the Deputy President, and just to show that this process has been a listening process, you will now see an Ombudsman that is housed within the Judicial Service Commission. And the reason JSC did not have the powers to punish judges was because at the time in 2010, we had a vetting mechanism coming on for judges. Now that vetting mechanism is no longer there. We must then have a mechanism that is permanent going forward. And so if you touch those clauses, it is not even me or you or anybody else saying that you have to go to a referendum. It is the Constitution itself saying once you touch these things, there is no other way. You must go to a referendum. And because those matters have been touched, not to change the architecture, but to make implementation better and to even prepare the country for even faster development and faster economic growth, then we really have to go to a referendum. So there is no choice. Once you touch the matters in Article 255, you have to go to a referendum. There are only two ways of amending the Constitution: the parliamentary initiative or the popular initiative. And the popular initiative is for every citizen. Remember, the President and the former Prime Minister and everybody else is still a citizen of this country. And so we all can come under the umbrella of the Constitution, but ensure that the amendments that we put through go through the entire process, go to the referendum. Wanjiku makes a decision. Ours is to persuade Wanjiku that this is the best intention, that the country is going to grow stronger with the intended amendments.
Okay. Daisy, there's a suggestion here from Honorable Rosa Buyu, who's a woman representative for Kisumu. She says, Daisy says that the biggest problem in Kenya is that we always blame the wrong thing. Yes, indeed. So stop blaming the timing, discuss the content to help Kenyans understand the issues so that they can approve or disapprove.
Thank you for that. And hi, Rosa, I'm glad you're watching. Let me say this. Priscilla has said very well that the Constitution envisions its own amendment, and that is true, okay? Because there's nothing that is made by human hands that is perfect. So from time to time, and as our nation evolves, we would want to amend the Constitution. But this is not such a time, because first and foremost, this thing has been initiated by two people. We talk about the handshake. Why was the handshake done? And why do we have continual crises in our elections? Not because of the law, because people lose in unfair contests. And that is what the problem is. And that has not been addressed in the BBI, except to create positions so that you are able to negotiate a pre-election deal that means that at the end of the day, then you don't need to engage in these electoral malpractices, that have been engaged in that cause people to become very upset because they feel that they have lost in an unfair contest, or people feel that they have been robbed of their victory. And that is really the crux of the matter. And that goes to the value system of this country and our elections. That elections are not even seen as the free exercise of the expression of the sovereign, who are the people of Kenya. That somebody actually believes that they can overrule the will of the people because they must stay in power. This is really what it is. It is the same tactics that we saw being done under the time of Moi, you know, where elections were nothing more than shambolic exercises. The BBI does not address itself to that. What are we doing to reform our political parties? What part of the Kriegler Commission recommendations have we adopted to clean up our political landscape? Because we forget that elections are not an event, they are a process. We have so much ambiguity around our elections, and we tend to make jokes about it. You know, we say when it comes to elections, Kenyans can't count. IBC are known as the mathematicians. They pull figures from nowhere. That has not yet been addressed, and those are still some of the outstanding issues of 2017. And for me, that is even a bigger problem going into a referendum, because if those issues, things like the servers and the transmission of results and IBC and the voters register and all these things have not yet been addressed, how sure are we, if we even go to a referendum, it's going to be a fair process? That the real will of the people will be seen. We've already seen this so-called popular initiative they've used government resources for the task force. And you know, I find it quite a contradiction, because Priscilla is a lawyer. She also sits in an independent commission. She talks about the task force, which consumed taxpayers' money. The collection of signatures, we all know, we saw the provincial administration there. A popular initiative, even the constitution is very clear that when you are undertaking a popular initiative, the movers of that initiative shall move it by their own cost up until the time it comes to the IBC. Then they can be, that is where taxpayers' money kicks in. But this whole thing is a mongrel that is being, we are making it up as we go along, you know? So we think that by continually repeating that, oh, it's a popular initiative, it's about the people, it's about making our nation better, that it will make it become the truth. Trevor, one of the things that we need to see that have been happening around our region are constitutional coups. You see, these days, it's not in vogue to do military coups and things like that, because, you know, the international community frowns upon that. Our African leaders have perfected constitutional coups. They use the law, the constitution, and abuse their positions of power to force amendments to the constitution so that they are either able to succeed themselves directly or by proxy.
So Daisy, the main concern here...
Now you cannot tell me that it is...
Daisy, one minute. You sound to me, Daisy, you sound to me like you're concerned more about the process and timing rather than the content.
But let me ask you, Trevor, the process affects the whole thing. Please don't forget that the presidential election of 2017 was nullified on process. So process matters, and the Constitution, you cannot tell me that you want us to amend the Constitution outside of the constitutionally laid down process. You cannot amend a constitution extra-constitutionally. That is illegal. That's why we have a constitution. Otherwise, there's no point to have the law.
Let me bring in...
We're talking here about amending the constitution, but you don't want to follow the constitution even in its own amendment.
All right, let me bring in Priscilla on this, because she's a lawyer as well.
I think that for me is a bit of an oxymoron.
All right, Priscilla?
Well, I mean, there isn't any step taken outside the constitutional provisions. And remember that this is, we've had referendums in this country before. This is the first one that has moved beyond the step of the signatures and beyond the step of the county assemblies who, in a big way endorsed the document. So first is to really convince even Daisy that we are within the constitutional framework, that Article 257 is really clear. And if there is something that the framers of our Constitution of Kenya 2010 were clear on, it is amendment process, because of the past abuse of amendment processes. So this particular process is really on all fours, following carefully what is provided for in Article 257 and without getting out of those provisions. And that is why you see the parliamentary effort at getting the members of parliament to pass their stage. You saw the effort with the county assemblies, you saw the effort with the signatures, and now we are in the effort around the parliament, and then after that will be the referendum. But then what is most important for both me and Daisy, we belong to women rights groups who have been pursuing actively amendments of the constitution for the purposes of 2/3. Yeah. Actively pursuing constitutional amendments. We have had, in fact, I even joined the bus a little late. Daisy and team, at the time of the late Honorable Mutula Kilonzo, just in Mwai Kibaki's government, before even the constitution ink had dried, there was already an attempt to change the constitution, to change the election date, but also to protect the 2/3 gender rule. When we came in the parliament, the 11th parliament, the efforts to change the constitution are already there. My own commission, the National Gender and Equality Commission, has documented the 10-year struggle to get the 2/3 done. That 2/3 is now in the BBI. And there's a place of political will. There is a place of a reform moment like the one that we have. Yeah. So now in this reform moment, what we have been fighting for on our own, we have a chance of getting it as we fight with other people who are also fighting for other reforms. I would see absolutely no problem. Look, we have been begging Parliament to change the constitution for the 2/3. An effort to change the constitution has come. I mean, doesn't it make more sense to join this bigger river than to katae hii? I mean, I can't even believe what she's telling us to do. We refuse this one, and then tomorrow we call ourselves, we start pursuing amendment of the constitution because the Chief Justice has already given an advisory that Parliament is unconstitutional. That matter is in court. In fact, the only reason Parliament is still on is because the matter is back to court. But even if the matter is back to court, the original answer is to fix the 2/3 gender rule. This BBI does not only fix the 2/3 gender rule, it makes it even better. It gives women 50% of the Senate. Remember, the women we've had in Senate were not voting. Now women in Senate will come by the vote and they will have a vote. Now you have women senators with a full vote. Yeah. In the National Assembly, in the list of 360 candidates, every party will have to bring candidates, women candidates, and the effort now is around women coming out to vote, to participate in the voting. And this is a rule also at county level, this is the rule at gubernatorial level. Yeah. The opposite gender rule for the governor and the deputy governor. So a lot of the things that we've been fighting for in the women's rights movement around implementation of 2/3 are being done under the BBI. Okay. We cannot now say we stop this effort, let this moment pass, we don't amend the constitution, which we have been asking for amendment for the last 10 years, and then we are left by this bus. So the answer must then be that because this bill provides solution for pending problems, the Youth Commission, for example, there are issues around the youth that have got to be addressed, and commissions like the one I serve in, which is supposed to look at youth, the elderly, the children, persons with disability. Remember, the persons with disability now have 4 seats in the National Assembly with full voting rights in the National Assembly. But there is value in having a commission that then full-time addresses matters of youth. Yeah. Some of those matters cannot wait any longer. We have been, as women, complaining that 10 years is too long, the amount of time it has taken, and we haven't even succeeded. The first bill had 195 members in Parliament, the second bill 212, we never attained the 233. So now that the BBI process is answering that question, we really must be in this process. And mine is to convince Daisy that there is no mischief, that there is a journey towards building the nation, and this is another building block, and that this building block leaves the country even much more ready for the next level. And the reason I'm speaking about the next level is because we also can't answer all the questions now. Yeah. When the parliamentarians come, when the fair representation representation, like the 70 constituencies, it is in a bid to make sure that one member of parliament represents 132,000 people. Within African standards, I can tell you, Nigeria, South Africa, within African standards. And one member of parliament for 132,000 people is really the best that we could do, because that's also what we had in 2010.
Okay.
And now, because of unfair distribution of population, you do have a member like Masiga Kuya in Kasarani representing 800,000 people, and another member in Eldas or any other constituency representing a much smaller number. So you must have a way of having fair distribution. Okay. When we all come to the table, we then continue resolving the questions of Kenya, because we have not resolved all of them. Okay. But this fair representation allows us, men, women, minorities, let's all come to the table. Let's continue with the process of building the nation, all of us together. So I would want to urge our viewers and also Daisy, we cannot waste any more time. I'm with Fred Okango. This is the time. Kama sio sasa ni sasa hivi.
Okay. Let's bring up what the people are saying and let's
utakuta mwana si wako.
Let's play some of the views that people have sent through to us as we wind up on this conversation.
Kenyans should expect even harder economic times ahead, as now they are going to be forced to dig even deeper into their pockets in order to fund the whole process of BBI referendum, which will take later this year in July in August, amid the COVID-19 pandemic and also the overwhelming loans which is facing now our country, Kenya.
My question goes to Honorable Nyakabi. What does she think? Is this BBI going to benefit the common mwananchi most, or BBI is used to champion for interest of a few individuals in power?
I don't understand why the Kenyan politicians think that changing the constitution is the most important thing. Because, for example, in UK, we have unwritten law, whereby people just follow the law without any legal document. So I don't think the constitution is the problem.
If now the members of parliament, the Senate and the parliament are a little bit confused, or maybe they are not sure of this process, what about a common mwananchi who does not know what a bill is? So there is need for clearance, and there is need for clarity in this particular day. Thank you.
When are we going to have voter education so that before the referendum, Kenyans understand exactly what is contained in the BBI report? Thank you.
Supposing this BBI fails to go through, ianguke pap at the referendum, shall we continue living thereafter as if the current constitution is very unfair, or as if the current constitution is crippled, that it is not of any help to us?
One of the things that we are asking ourselves, or I am asking myself as a Mwananchi, if the counties, more than half of the counties were cheated or were given wrong document of BBI, what about what we are reading in the media? Because they have not provided to us the real documents, and how are we that the things that we are reading are true?
How will the same BBI solve the equation of two-thirds gender rule in both parliaments, that is National Assembly and the Senate? Will the issue of BBI, for example, will we continue increasing the number of constituencies as a result of population increase in our country? Should we have a criteria like in the United States of America, whereby we have 435 units, that is House of Representatives? The issue, the units have never increased.
All right. Daisy, we've run out of time here, but I'll give you a chance for closing remarks, because whatever happens in Parliament, this will still come to the people. What next?
Let me say this. First of all, if the government, if the movers of BBI were sincere, and if the president was sincere about the 35%, to the counties, we would see it in the bill, in the finance bill right now for the budget. It is not there. Priscilla says there is no mischief, yet the BBI has removed the vetting principle for CSs and PSs. Why? Why the vetting principle? It is merging the executive, the legislature, and the ombudsman is actually an assault on judicial independence. So that now, under the BBI proposals, we are going to have all these three arms of government actually under the control of the executive. That is actually what we sought to protect from under the protected clauses that Priscilla mentioned that must go to a referendum. The separation of powers and interdependent arms of government. That is being taken away by the BBI. But in closing, let me say this. Priscilla talks about the two-thirds gender principle. Already, the Chief Justice Emeritus pronounced himself on this matter. Parliament, as it currently sits, is illegal because they have failed to implement the two-thirds gender rule. The so-called gender gains in the BBI actually vary the two-thirds gender principle and put a sunset clause for 15 years in the National Assembly and 10 years in the County Assembly, meaning that within 25 years, the two-thirds principle will be removed altogether. Yet, the Constitution envisions that it must remain in perpetuity. And yes, if we reject BBI, we still remain with the Constitution 2010. You see, the thing is, we are not losing anything. I'm calling upon Kenyans to reject the BBI in total. The BBI is not what we need to be focusing on. If the president is genuine about wanting to amend the Constitution, there is no rush. We should prepare for the general election of 2022. In the interim, as we prepare, we should recover our economy.
Okay.
And we are ready and willing to be all hands on deck to support the government in reviving this economy and contributing towards the productivity of this nation. Okay. We can have the discussion about constitutional amendments with the next set of leaders that will come in after the 2022 elections.
All right.
But if they push this thing, then Kenyans must reject it, and we must mark all these legislators that are supporting it, because they should not be allowed to represent people anymore, because Kenyans have already spoken about their position on the BBI, that it is not important.
Okay. Priscilla.
They want the government to focus on addressing their livelihood issues.
All right. Thanks, Daisy. Priscilla,
and so do I.
Your closing remarks on this?
Just very quickly, we are a very prescriptive country with our laws. And Daisy spoke earlier about the Ward Development Fund. Some counties that have done that, those are audit queries, and there's a lot of problems around just getting that passed by the controller of budget. We are a prescriptive country. In fact, our language of law is nothing would have been easier than to write it. So if these things are harmless, nothing would have been easier than to write them. Even the two-thirds, the reason we are struggling with it is because it is not prescriptive. We need prescriptive laws. And this is what now this is doing. You prescribe a little more. If we want 35% of the resources to go to counties, nothing would be easier than to write. And we have a chance to write. So let's write whatever we need to write. On the question of vetting, remember we've had separation, full separation. And you know, these are all different styles of democracy, as it were. And for us, that is not working. What we want to see for ourselves is interdependence of the organs. The legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. And those are also the questions with the Madam CJ now, the nominee. Interdependence of the organs. And I served as a parliamentarian. I can tell you there is no fun in me not being able to answer questions of water and health, even like now. Health, the Minister for Health is in the executive, doesn't come to Parliament, and you have to answer questions of health with your people. So nothing is easier than to have the Minister for Health come where the questions on health are. The Minister for Water come where the questions on water are. The Minister for Roads. So we are now moving into interdependence. And there is nothing wrong with the system of government that we choose. It's just what gives Wanjiko better service. Interdependence gives Wanjiko better service. And that we will see, because we've seen it before when there was interdependence of the organs. And then lastly, on the question of how Kenyans should vote, I think that these documents are available. The bill was actually put in the newspaper. There's a lot of information around it online. Law and politics has always been a good marriage. And that is what you see with all the errors, with all that the counties didn't get the right bill. That is just a mixture of law and politics. But eventually for the citizen, we are going to have to vote for a document that improves our lives, that improves and promises us better governance. And this BBI does actually do that. I don't want to ask people to vote yes because I am a commissioner and you've been telling me, I wish I was the women rep of Nyeri. I would say vote yes, Tuanga yes. But now as a commissioner, let me say, read the document, look at the changes promised, nothing harmful to the 2010 Constitution. In fact, a journey of implementation and one that we must seize the moment. A bird in hand is worth two in the bush. Now that the President and the Prime Minister have led us in this journey, it is a good journey for the country. I can tell you, when we sit here in 2023, our country will be much more stable. If we don't have these reforms, we'll be sitting here in 2023 we'll be forming another task force for the purposes of the BBI. Why do all that when we can seize the moment now, get the reforms done, go into the election in a more stable environment and promising an even better future for our country, because that's essentially, between both Daisy and myself and all of us, what we actually are seeking is a better country for ourselves and our children. And the reforms in BBI promise that. And remember, BBI is not just the constitutional bill. You have to remember that we have the legislative amendments coming on, for example, political parties. We have administrative reforms. We also have policy reforms. So it's a wholesome process of amendments, a revolution as it were. I mean, I think that the president, this is a Sankara moment for him. We should seize it. If we don't seize it now, tusifanye ile majuto ni mjuku. Wacha tupite na BBI. In Kukland we say, uboka na kile mereirie. Ponyoka na kile umeswalo. So we swallow hii ponyokanga na kile umeswalo. Thank you.
This will come to the Wanjiku. Eventually you will decide. So whatever we do here, eventually you're the one with the power. So when it comes to you, whatever way Parliament votes, it is definitely coming to the Wanjiku, because they're supposed to be salutary. Whether they amend it or not, you are still the one who decides finally. Let's see what you're saying on Twitter here. G. Ngaina says BBI is good for Kenya but not a priority at the moment. The government should fix the economy first. BBI can wait. All right, let's see what else you're saying here before we wrap up this discussion. It's gone just slightly beyond time. Brown Sankale says BBI talk a lot about money, 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 money. Where will this money come from? 2, why is it only leaders championing about BBI? BBI, you're addressing it in English. How will my grandmama in Narok understand it? All right, good question, Sankale. Let's see what else you're saying here on Twitter. Kamau FK says BBI is a good document that needs to be adopted. Its opposers are not citing anything wrong in the document. They keep talking about the timing and the process. Why don't they pinpoint issues in BBI that they find unnecessary? All right, let's see what else you're saying here as we wind up on this discussion. Maina Shomo says there is nowhere in the world where a constitution is static. Let us review our constitution. The 35% devolved funds, ward fund, youth commission, among others like expanded executive, are great for Kenya. All right, let's see if we can get a final one here. Ogeka Araka says Kenya's biggest political crisis squarely stems from our flawed presidential elections. BBI has not addressed how our next presidential poll will be free and fair. All right. Ladies, thank you so much. Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi, former women rep Nyeri, and Daisy Amdanyi, the member for Linda Katiba. We'll see how the people vote on this BBI when it comes to them. All right, that's been the Monday Report Town Hall session. My name is Trevor Mbija. Always a pleasure having you with us. Have a great night ahead and a fantastic week, by the way. We'll see how this turns out. Bye for now.